At the end of the century, the greatest battle has begun. Here's your look at the Diamond Select. This is the gallery diorama statue of Godzilla 1991. This gallery diorama of Godzilla is based on his appearance in the 1991's Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah. It is made of high-quality PVC and features detailed sculpting and paint details. You can also combine this one with a standalone gallery diorama statue of King Ghidorah himself. Truly a king-size statue for the King of the Monsters himself. Before we get the closer look details at the 1991 Godzilla gallery statue, the first thing, of course, we always do. First thing we're going to do is figure out how tall this statue stands. While I'm doing this, I'd like to send out also a big thank you to the folks over at Diamond Select who made this review possible. If you're in the market of picking this one up for yourself, and I certainly don't blame you, you should be able to find the Godzilla 1991 gallery statue in most online stores or your local comic book stores when they eventually open up. According to my tape measure, you're looking at the 1991 Godzilla gallery statue standing 10 inches exactly. Translating that to centimeters, for those that fancy their units in centimeters, you're looking then at Godzilla standing 25.5 or 25.5 centimeters exactly. One neat thing about this particular statue is that it does work alongside a standalone King Ghidorah gallery statue that Diamond Select sells separately. The idea is that you do connect the two together, and not having King Ghidorah in front of me, I'm not sure whereabouts it connects, but I gotta imagine it connects like right here, based on the fact that Godzilla is looking this direction. What I do like, though, the way that Diamond handled at least this piece, is that it's self-contained. It doesn't look like it's supposed to belong to a bigger puzzle. It's standalone and it actually tells its own story without really having to have something else connected to it. And right off the bat, that's one thing I really like about this particular statue. Now, it's comprised of PVC plastic, but I'm sure looking at it, you probably would not gauge it to be as heavy as it actually is. There's a fair bit of weight when you first pick this one up for yourself. I gotta believe most, if not all of it, is actually more on Godzilla's part. Probably has to lose a little bit of the weight, and not so much actually all the tidal waves that are leaving away from his wake of his walk. One thing you want to be careful, though, of this particular statue is picking it up right here. I did this once, and I sort of felt like something was giving way, realizing quickly that I wanted to grab it from the rest of the base. Because there's such thin plastic right here, the area of which the dock pier is sitting on. Imagine if you pick this up and all the weight is basically localized back here. This would most likely snap. So you want to be careful of this area right here. The pier has almost been completely lost with all the, of course it will likely be lost with all the tidal waves that's coming towards it. It's been nicely done in brown paint with a dry brushing of darker color over top of it. It's always interesting when you see like these little grooves on camera. It kind of looks like it's giving you an optical illusion. Sorry for that. But it's really, as you can see, it's almost going to be completely engulfed by the waves and the water that's going to be coming over top of it. It is really the only thing that's colored differently than the rest of the ice blue plastic that they used for the water, except technically for this one lone ship, which I can't tell whether it has been trying to flee Godzilla, avoiding the wake of the water that's going to be coming towards it, but it looks like clearly that poor tiny little ship is going to get washed away. Even the details done to the little tiny ship itself, you imagine how big that would be in a 1-to-1 scale. Certainly give you then the idea of how big Godzilla actually is. But it's nice little details done to this. The dry brushing of black to an otherwise gunmetal gray that they've used. You can see that it looks like there's little sirens or something on the side. Dark burgundy colored red that they used on either side of the ship, along the top area there as well. But one good thing is that it does give you an idea of size. Gauging kind of the idea of what you would think a ship would be of this size kind of gives you an idea then of how big Godzilla actually is. It's really neat the way that they've actually crafted this entire thing. If I flip it upside down, sort of can see the majority of it is all this ice blue PVC plastic. With this, what seems to be a separate piece from this part that was probably attached over top of it, you can sort of see how it's been seamed away, like this whole top section here sort of been attached to the bottom area here by this seam line. There's a hole in the bottom. I almost thought for a second that if it was just deep enough, you could probably run a light source underneath this, and maybe, if anything, illuminate the waves. That would be really a nice effect. Certainly by this being all translucent blue, there is a good possibility that you could run a light source underneath that, but really the hole doesn't give you enough clearance to get a light in there, unless you put it on top of a light table, and then really you would just be able to illuminate the entire thing. That's a good possibility to try. Of course, you've got Godzilla in the top of what would, I'm guessing, being an ocean. I mean, the ocean kind of just looks like a bathtub when you see the big giant lizard walking through it. You can almost see where his legs would still continue on past the point of the water, but there's so much of it. Godzilla's feet, like I said, it just looks like he's in a wading pool, if anything else. The head sculpt, let's get a good look at that. I'm really liking the way that they've designed this. You can see the way that he's got his furrowed brow. He's definitely angry at something, and I would be wanting to stay completely away from him. You can see the sharp individual teeth all painted nicely in beige, with also his tongue being a slightly purple pink. I like also the coloring of his eyes as well, almost the color of a lemon yellow, with what seems to be an outlined area in red. You can see the piercing pupils of black, with an otherwise, most if not the rest of the lizard is all pretty much one color, except until we of course look at the spikes on the back of him. But most if not all the color on him is this dark gray, with little areas of lighter gray that's been painted over top of it, so you see the details on the skin of the lizard. Really nice touches the way that they've done that. I'm really happy with the way that this face sculpt looks though. Spin the figure around, the statue around. One thing that won't be as part of this statue is a tail. You could sort of imagine, if you will, based on the shadowing that's underneath there, that there is a tail somewhere deep in the dark waters there. But I mean, as for certainly from a sculpt level, I don't think they've actually added any tail in there. It looks like the sculpt actually stops right there. Looking at the back of the lizard, looking at the back of Godzilla, I feel a disservice calling him simply just a lizard. You can see all the additional light gray that they've added to the points of each of the individual blades of spikes that stick out from his back. Most of all the color is actually down here. They don't put too much up at the top here. If they had added just a little bit more of the gray up here, it would be nice, a continuation to the ones that are larger spikes down below. Just add a little bit of there, just a little bit up there as well, I think I would have liked also. Just a lot of cool details happening just to the skin. Godzilla is a very difficult sort of thing to pull off as a statue. I mean, he's got a lot of cool details to him, but he doesn't have a whole lot of paint. I feel like why they went maybe perhaps the route of water is by incorporating some additional much needed brighter colors. Because Godzilla, because the pier, and because the boat are all dark grays or dark browns, it really does make for a very boring color palette. By then incorporating all the translucent blue in the water, which I also might add, if you look at even like, let's just pick the statue up one more time, even like the water itself changes its color. It's more of an ice blue down here, but as it gets a little bit closer to the outer edges, the outer points and tips of the waves, you can see it gets more of a clear color. Again, really like the way that they've added that. In a sense, in a way, the blue almost makes this illuminate, even though technically it's all still PVC plastic. By incorporating the translucent PVC plastic as well as the more darker colors for Godzilla, you get what will end up really being a very successful looking statue based on what they've done right here. I'm really anxious then to pick up the King Ghidorah so I can have it on display with Godzilla, but the way that they've contained everything so nicely here, you really don't even necessarily need King Ghidorah. You can have Godzilla standing on his own, or at least standing in water all on his own. Generally, I'm sure when you picture the king of the monsters, Godzilla, you probably have him in an environment like a cityscape. I know certainly I do. It's fine and good for the films because obviously you can have Godzilla walking through the streets and destroying buildings in his path. But I feel like that would translate to a rather boring looking statue. Sure, the details would look good, but the color palette would be all a boring gray. The buildings would be gray, the streets would be gray, and of course the King of the Monsters, Godzilla himself, would also be gray. So it's nice to see when it came time to produce a gallery statue from Godzilla, the 1991 film, Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, that Diamond Select, instead of going the more expected route of putting him inside of a city environment, they instead plopped the lizard into a big giant body of water. Not only does it give you an idea of how big the lizard is by incorporating that little tiny ship, you got to imagine that's a pretty big lizard, but it does also incorporate some much needed additional color. Godzilla certainly does stand out when he's surrounded by that ice blue translucent plastic. And again, it really adds additional energy to the statue when you're looking at it as well. Now, this is supposed to connect in some way, shape, or form to a standalone King Ghidorah. I don't think that the two actually do connect. I feel King Ghidorah just sort of goes close enough to the statue so it looks like Godzilla is going to be battling it, but I don't feel like, based on the shape of the way that the base is designed, I don't think the two actually do attach. I might be wrong by that. I would love to certainly pick up the King Ghidorah and put them together to see how the intended plan was, the big picture that Diamond had in mind. One good thing, as I said at the beginning of this review, Godzilla looks self-contained. He doesn't look like he belongs to a bigger puzzle, so I do like that. You can, of course, go the route of getting the King Ghidorah and combining the two, or you can just have Godzilla wreaking havoc in a waterway, just all on his own. And that might be just for the time being until I decide to pick up King Ghidorah, just the way I'm going to display the figure. Intended just to be a standalone, on his own piece, and on his own, he looks incredible, especially by incorporating the tidal waves around him. Did you manage to pick up this piece for yourself? Let me know down below, or based on this review, what do you guys think of the Godzilla 1991 Gallery Diorama statue from Diamond Select? Speaking of also Diamond Select, a big thank you to Diamond for taking the time and sending this my way. If you are in the market of picking up the Godzilla 1991 statue for yourself, you should be able now to find it through various online sites, or your local comic book stores when they eventually open up. Jokingly, I say when they open up, they might very well be open by the time you're actually seeing this review. If you do go, though, still be careful, still be safe, still wear a mask on your face. That wasn't supposed to rhyme, and kind of sounded like it did, but it didn't rhyme. It didn't rhyme. Also, if you are new to this channel and digging the content that you're seeing, consider perhaps the idea of hitting that subscribe button down below, turn the bell notification on. And stay tuned. Periodically come back to this channel, or know that Monday to Friday, 12 p.m. and 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you should be able to find new videos starting to pop up onto this channel. So FYI. As always, guys, thanks for watching as you always do, and I'll see you guys next time.